Charlie and the Chocolate Factory has been one of my favorite movies since I was a kid. I love both the Gene Wilder version and the Johnny Depp version, and when I heard that there was a musical, I got really excited. I was first introduced to this musical through a YouTube video, but what I did not expect to see was Veruca Salt getting ripped apart on stage by a group of giant squirrels. Something that's always interested me about the Willy Wonka franchise is the fact that it takes this really whimsical concept and it has these really bright and colorful pieces and sets, but it also has this kind of dark element despite it being for children. And that kind of genre has always interested me. It's always been a really big part of my interests. So that is one of the reasons why I really love this musical. Now, this show has a very complicated history, and there are many versions of it, but I will be specifically talking about the American version, most likely Broadway / off-Broadway. And the scene that I want to talk about is the Pure Imagination song that is the second scene of Act 2. So Act 2 begins with the song Strike That Reverse It. It is the first scene inside the factory. All of the ticket winners have gotten their tickets. They had the introduction of Wonka right before, and they are finally in the factory ready to sign the contract. This is where the song Strike That Reverse It plays. In the song, we go through each ticket winner, they meet Wonka, and we kind of see a little bit more of these characters' traits and personalities. At the very end of the song, Wonka brings out a really long contract for them to sign, and he wraps it around the group of guests as they twirl and then eventually pulls it back, and it makes all of them fall. While they're on the ground, Wonka explains something about the candy room and eventually reveals it to the group of guests. This is where Pure Imagination begins. In the song, Wonka begins singing and slowly helps lift up some of the guests, and they take a look around the candy room. However, where it differs from the Gene Wilder version is that at the very end of the song, we have a little snippet of Charlie singing, as well as the rest of the group singing Pure Imagination in unison. Once the song finishes, Augustus then falls into the river, and then his whole death, yes, I said death, scene happens. Now, what I want to talk about today is why I think this scene genuinely is one of the most powerful scenes in the show. Any sort of Willy Wonka media has us not really feel bad for the children, except for maybe Charlie. We're not really meant to sympathize with them. They are all shown to be brats, to be selfish, to be arrogant, to be spoiled, and when they meet their demise, we don't necessarily feel guilty about it. However, me personally, I believe the opposite to be true for the musical. While yes, the children are also rotten in the musical, they still have the same traits, mostly the same traits as they do in the movies. I think there are certain elements that do make me at least sympathize with them. For one, I don't think any of them deserved to die, or in Mike's case, be subjected to be a tiny doll for the rest of his life. In the musical, you really get to see that the parents are the reason why the children are like this. As an example, take Violet Beauregarde. In the musical, Violet is a Californian social media child star. Her father is her agent, and she is famous for chewing gum. During Strike That Reverse It, you can see her father is constantly taking photos of her, videos, giving Wonka his business card. It is very clear that he is all about the fame. Children cannot consent to having themselves on social media, and especially if the person that you look up to most is grooming you into thinking that child fame is the ultimate goal. Her father is an enabler, and somehow we're supposed to feel okay with her being the one that explodes and not him. Another example is Mike TV, one of the most rotten out of them all. Yes, Mike TV is still super rotten, super selfish, and super obsessed with his phone in the musical. However, we get a little bit more information about the mother, and it really makes sense why Mike is like this. In one of the versions of his introduction song, called What Could Possibly Go Wrong, we learn a little bit about how Mike's mom chooses to raise him. The song is a very clear parody about 60s housewives, TV dinners, participation awards, and we learn that she takes various amounts of pills and chugs it all down with a bucket of beer just to deal with him.
When they're stuffed up to the gills, we strap them in and take our pills. Clonopin, Ativan, Paxil, and Valium. I need a pill just to sit down and tally 'em. Propofol's good, I got Librium here, but I chase them all down with a bucket of beer. Here in the woods of America.
In another version of this song called Little Man of Mine, we actually see Mike's mom strap him to a chair. So he's physically restrained, the whole pill thing is still there, as well as the whole alcohol thing. We also get a part in Strike That Reverse It where she tries to sneak in a flask of alcohol, and there's a little bit that happens there.
And there's no alcohol in my factory, I'm afraid.
It's lemonade.
And I will always love you! Whoa, Nelly!
Homemade. You should visit my factory sometime.
So we know that it is implied that Mike's mom is an alcoholic as well as maybe a pill abuser. And based on her behavior in both of those songs, she is neglectful at best and abusive at worst. Augustus's sin is supposed to be gluttony. And while yes, he is a little gluttonous and loves to eat, he really doesn't do much wrong. In the Johnny Depp version, at least he was a little mean to Charlie, but in the musical, it portrays him as this really fun-loving kid who just really likes to eat and has a great relationship with his mom. In fact, in, I believe, the West End version, when he is crawling through the fudge pipe, he tells his mom he loves her before he dies.
How much you eat? I love you, Mama!
And again, we're supposed to not feel bad for the kids dying. I think Veruca really is the only kid that I don't necessarily feel too bad about because she stays mostly the same and they don't really show any kind of redeeming qualities about her. Not that children in any way deserve death like that, but in terms of her like a redemption arc, or not arc, but at least certain qualities like the other kids got, there isn't really much there. So it makes a little more sense to have her demise be a little more graphic than the others. But the reason this all relates to the Pure Imagination scene is that when everybody sings together, there's a sort of moment out of time that makes you realize, and it really just cements that the fact that these are all just children. Even the parents were once children, and you kind of strip all of their character. Their masks fall, their characters fall, and you just see children on stage dreaming about pure imagination.
Nothing to it.
Gives me chills every single time, and as sensitive as I'm gonna sound right now, it very much brings me to tears most times. For one precious small moment, we don't see rotten children, we don't see neglectful and awful parents, but pure souls that are just filled with this amazement and wonder. And this only makes me feel worse when the kids meet their demise. because at their core, they are just children. This scene really does a great job humanizing its characters. And in a show that is full of chaos, as we know right after Augustus' scene happens, it was really refreshing to have this kind of calm, serene, serious moment that really encapsulates the beauty and wonder of the world that Wonka wants to build. You get to be a part of the guests that he brings in. You get to see his pure imagination. And while this scene was put in most likely just to keep the Gene Wilder song and the popularity, I truly think that it is one of the most powerful scenes in the musical Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.